What's up, everybody? It's time for the three most tantalizing, scintillating words in all of daily fantasy. We are back. Week 16, Line Movement Pre-Kickoff Show. Joe Holka and Peter Overzet joining me, Dieter Kurtenbach, for this, the crappiest of slates. Oh boy. Pete, can you flip this bad boy on its head a few times, maybe shake something loose for us here?
No, man, I've been looking at it, and it is such a gross slate, man. I'm thinking about unregging from all my contests and not even playing, man. It's so gross.
And Joe Holka, how are you feeling after the Arizona Cardinals loss on another crappy slate yesterday?
It's a tough scene, man. It's not great overall for my mindset in general. Coming off of it's really a bounce back spot overall on this slate, I think. So it's not necessarily a gross slate, but it's more of a bounce back spot for me after a tough day yesterday. So hopefully we can get back in the winning ways for sure. And we're starting with a game that I'm not very excited about. So I guess we'll get off hot here.
Yeah, talk about a bounce back spot. The Pittsburgh Steelers need 1.5. They're getting they're giving up 2.5 in this game for some ungodly reason to the Colts in Pittsburgh. 42.5 point total. This is gross. But Peter Overzet, talk to me about maybe the value in a Phillip Rivers play here against the Steelers. 5,600 on DraftKings.
I will not talk to you about that because I don't think that is an actual thing. Because I think playing Phillip Rivers is just gross, man. I can't do it on this gross slate. Yeah, I think the thing that this is weird, right? Because we've had a lot of these Colts games where they have super high team totals and they look like good spots. And you do just kind of hope to guess the guy where the points are coming from. Today, we have really low team totals. That said, Joe, I know you said you don't like this. I do have a couple plays I don't mind. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to go a little bit under the radar right now. His rushing and receiving workload is so good. Played the biggest snap share of the season last year, been getting all of the touches inside the 20. So I think he's perfectly viable if you're fading some of the chalk running back. And I also like Deontay Johnson still as well. I think at 6,300, I think his kind of role, he had a 34% target share last week. He is the alpha despite the drops in this offense, and he's going to be sub 10%. So I'm not stacking up this game, Joe, but I definitely don't mind taking some stabs.
Yeah, I like both those guys, honestly. I think that the Deontay Johnson play in particular still makes a lot of sense. Like, there's not supposed to be a lot of scoring in this game overall, but like anytime you can get at least the workload that he kind of has locked in, I think it makes sense. He's kind of in a weird price point for me, but I think like a guy that hasn't been very efficient with his targets this year with all those drops. Still, like if he happens to fall in the end zone a couple of times and kind of correct some of those drop issues that he has, we've seen these healing games come out of nowhere with Deontay with such a large target share. So I'm in on that one. Taylor's interesting just because this running back slate, Pete, is very gross, as people are telling us all morning. 7,300, I think a lot of people are probably going to try and get up to Chubb in that range or Eckler. So I think that Taylor's interesting. I think this Pittsburgh defense, we just saw Gio Bernard run all over them, right? So they definitely have some injuries on the back end as well. So I think that if you want to be on one piece of this, it's probably one-offs. I'm not really looking to stack or mini stack this probably, but I think Taylor and Deontay were the guys for me as well.
73% of the cash on the spread is for the Colts. So that makes all the sense in the world considering what we saw from the Steelers. The total on this one seems to be entirely dependent on the Steelers continuing to suck, and yet they're favorites. There's no real weather concerns in Pittsburgh. What the hell do we make out of a very disjointed line? We should all be in on the Colts, right? Like, Overzet, you're in on the Colts, right?
Yeah, I'm in on the Colts, but I am staring at this total, and I think I'm inclined to take the over. I think we might be underselling these offenses here, and I think we could see a decent amount of points.
Listen, Holker, we all watched what Big Ben did. It was egregious. I mean, it's one of the worst. It was a horrendous beat for me, so I'm going to hold a grudge. But like, talk to me as a neutral observer. What the hell you saw from Ben Roethlisberger in his last game, other than doo-doo?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a talent evaluator by any means, but you see him just consistently miss guys like Claypool deep, and the frustration by some of these pass catchers for sure. He just doesn't look right. He can't throw the deep ball right now accurately. He's one of the least accurate deep ball throwers in the NFL this year. So that's a big problem in general. But I think that he's still like, there's pieces of this game where I could see it breaking right. But Pittsburgh is just like, it seems like somewhat of a sinking ship right now. Indy's a team that we've been all over in the betting markets all year. Pittsburgh, like, they just got off to such a hot start. And just like, but if you were to like, I mean, is there a team that you see them beating right now in the playoffs, like in this race? Like, I think you've got to like you've got to like the Titans over Pittsburgh. You've got to like a lot of these wild card teams over Pittsburgh as well. So I think that it's a really tough spot to be bullish overall.
And the defense has taken a step back or two with some injuries as well, and they're not going to get those guys back. I mean, who would have thought that Robert Spillane would be a loss for them? But we don't really talk about defense or guys like Robert Spillane on this show. We move forward to Falcons and Chiefs. This game should be pretty gross from a general perspective, but from a DFS perspective, tantalizing, to use that term again, and final time I'll ever use it. I got some numbers here. I'm sure you guys got some numbers. Joe Holka, are you going with Mahomes? Are you gonna play him against Atlanta here? 8,500.
Yeah, the interesting about this game, it's by far the highest over-under on the slate from a game perspective. Right. But, I mean, it is a pretty large spread overall. It's not like one of those spots like last week where we had Chiefs-Saints where it was a pretty tight spread. We expected it to be a little bit more back and forth. That said, there's some really big price discrepancies here. Patrick Mahomes, 8,500. Matt Ryan is 5,800 on DraftKings. These guys are so expensive overall. Kelsey is 8,500 on DraftKings. There's some pretty decent value options at the tight end position. So I could actually see a guy like Kelsey come a little bit lower than I just don't think that a lot of people are going to pay all the way up at 8,500. Am I just clearly wrong on that, Pete? Because like I'm seeing some ownership come in this morning and Travis Kelsey is much lower than I thought.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with this game. I do think there's enough value to get up to any of these guys that you want. And I am worried that it is going to be the chalk construction. And I'm seeing like, are there some leverage points I can make in this game? This is almost close to an X out game for me, which I know sounds crazy, but it's just really hard. And I think we also have some health concerns on Tyreek Hill. You know, he's been banged up all week. I do think if you're looking for leverage, maybe going to a Mecole Hardman or Sammy Watkins there. And I do think Travis Kelsey's ownership is going to start coming down, like Joe hinted at. I think with Donald Parham opening up as a stone punt at the 4 p.m. slot, that Travis Kelsey isn't going to be as popular. But I do think the combination of like Ridley Hill, Ridley Kelsey is going to be very popular, and people seem to want to play Le'Veon Bell as well. So I'm not too excited about Le'Veon Bell as chalk. So man, I'm staying away from this game. I think it's a bad spot for the Falcons. I've actually been starting a lot of my lineups with the Chiefs defense. And that might be the way I try to get my leverage here of what if the Chiefs just, route the Falcons early. So I don't know. Joe, am I crazy for not, having more of this game?
No, I mean, just to expand a little bit on Tyreek Hill, obviously battling through that hamstring injury. I think that he's probably not going to be limited, but that's pretty scary for a deep threat. I think one other thing that's interesting, like we were focused on last week, how New Orleans has been getting beat over the top. The Falcons would be in that category as well, but we saw what New Orleans did last week. They just kind of sat two safeties really deep and just let them work underneath the whole game. So maybe the Falcons they had at least some success shutting down Tyreek Hill last week. Maybe they do kind of a very similar approach and they kind of just sit back and it's Kelsey who eats underneath. So Calvin Ridley's 8,500. He's been very good, obviously, without Julio Jones in the lineup. But I'm kind of with you on the Chiefs defense being a nice leverage option here. Like Peter, what we're kind of looking for at the defense position in DFS and in fantasy is a couple of different things. We want game script. So there's going to be a lot of passing on the other side. We have both of those here. We also want pressure, but we also just like there's the matchups that we want to focus on are ones that are very good against the run. Like Atlanta's very good against the run. There's going to be a ton of pass attempts from Matt Ryan. So like it's kind of a sneaky spot for the Chiefs team as like a pretty big favorite in this one. So I'm in on that, Pete. I haven't built a Mahomes team that I like so far. If that's any indication, it's not easy to build those teams. Maybe it's not optimal in this slate.
But do you have a Le'Veon Bell lineup that you like, Joe?
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell feels kind of like the Leonard Fournette play last week in some ways. Like it's just such a high total that we could easily see him falling in the end zone a couple of times. And then at his price, he ends up being one of those plays that makes some sense. But he's 5,800. Like, were we interested in Clyde Edwards-Helaire at a similar price point? I really wasn't. I think there's still a chance that, Le'Veon could still have like some touchdown equity, but as far as ceiling, I don't know if it's really there. I think they're probably going to expand the role of Darrell Williams a little bit also. So the team total is really all you really need to know. Le'Veon Bell is pretty dust though. Yeah.
52.5 for the overall total on this game. As you mentioned earlier, Joe, the spread on this one's 11.5 for Kansas City. The way you guys were describing what you think could happen with the game script, that doesn't sound out of the realm, but does anyone want to take a little bit of action on Atlanta to keep it closer than 11.5? That's a big fat total for a team that hasn't covered I think they might have covered last week, but they barely did. A team that really hasn't covered in months in Kansas City. Does anyone want any of this Atlanta action? Can I interest you, Peter Overzet?
No, I think they get absolutely clobbered here. Yeah. And that's partly too why I think, it's the same thing with Derrick Henry last week. When the price and the ownership gets this high, these pieces absolutely have to smash to meet value at that ownership. And unless we have the Falcons pushing them to do that, I just don't see how we get there. So yeah, I think the Falcons lose. I would take the Chiefs to cover that spread.
90% of the cash is on Kansas City covering 11.5. I'm a fade the public guy. I think I might throw down a sawbuck or two on the Falcons 11.5 just for it to be a total shootout. And I'd have to play the over then too as well. All right, let's get a little grosser here. Giants 10.5 point underdogs at Baltimore, 44.5 point total. The real question in this one, J.K. Dobbins or Gus Edwards? Dobbins going off at 6,200, Edwards at 4,400. Who do you like, Peter Overzet?
Yeah, I like this game. I think looking at ownership today, Lamar Jackson's ownership keeps coming down. Earlier in the week, it was Watson and Lamar who had kind of flipped. And this game is nice. I do think J.K. Dobbins is a solid play, but at that price tag, with Gus Edwards lurking, not catching as many passes on DraftKings, I know this is the easy cop out. I prefer him on FanDuel, but Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, even Marquise Brown, I think are all very viable. 27 implied team total here. And then there's also some cheap stabs on the Giants if you want to bring it back. I think Slayton Shepherd or even Evan Ingram could all be viable bringbacks in this spot, and no one is going to play anyone in this game, Joe. So I like the Lamar skinny stacks here.
Interesting.
I'm with you, man. I think that people aren't going to want to pay $8K for Lamar, but like you have the value to do it on this slate. I think that I actually like, this is probably not a shock to most people out there, but I like Hollywood quite a bit. I know it's not a good matchup, Bradbury back there, but I'm looking a little bit deeper into some of the coverage stuff here as I'm kind of looking through the slate this morning. And like just Hollywood has been so good against zone coverage overall, like this year. Like he's been the guy. 29% target share, tied for the lead with highest target share versus zone coverage with Stephon Diggs. So he's a guy that this is kind of where he makes his bread. If we just look at things like weighted opportunity, he's still getting a large share of the air yards there, which haven't been very great from Lamar Jackson this year. Obviously, the volume overall through the air isn't very high, but I do like Marquise Brown at his price point. I think a lot of people at 5,700 won't want to pay that price. I like the Slayton call quite a bit. He's 3,800 on the other side. So I think that one is super interesting. Just a high upside bring back on the other side. But yeah, I like the Lamar skinny today. I'm with you on that one, Pete.
There's a lot of money going in on the Ravens. The sharps are all over the Ravens in this one. Joe, you're nodding along. You seem to be on that angle as well. Are you totally out on the Giants, making it interesting? Their defense can be a little bit feisty, maybe not against these guys, but sometimes.
Yeah, I'm more concerned that the Ravens defense has so much success here that Lamar gets kind of game script out a little bit than I am about the Giants really making any noise on the other side. I still don't think that Danny Dimes is right. So I think that there's a chance that this ends up being just an absolute rout as well as some of those other games we talked about.
Overzet, how do you feel about the total 44.5? Can Baltimore put up enough to where even if the Giants don't perform, you can get over this 44.5 number?
I can't tell if this is just me hoping for this since I want to play Lamar Jackson, but I do think the Giants can hang a little bit here. And I like the over. Think we could see a decent amount of points here. I like these non-divisional games late in the season too. Yeah,
that's a great call. Bears and Jaguars, the ultimate non-divisional game. Two teams that should never really face off under any circumstances. Mike Glennon revenge game. The Jaguars 8.5 point dogs at home with the 46.5 point total. We just pounding David Montgomery like the Bears are. We taking him at 77 and just riding it all the way to hell. What do you think, Holka?
He's going to be chalk for sure. 7,700. Something feels not great about buying the top on David Montgomery, but it's a really, like we said, gross running back slate at the high end of the salary spectrum. So I think Montgomery's pretty decent chalk in this spot. I actually like Trubisky in this game a ton. So I built a decent amount of Trubisky and Allen Robinson skinnies this morning. So I think that Allen Robinson, that's the revenge spot, right, Pete?
I like that call. The only thing I would say is I feel like if you're playing Mitch, I like some of the secondary options. I'd almost prefer to double stack it and toss in Mooney or Kmet and just knowing like, hey, if you're winning a tournament with Mitch Trubisky, like he's going for 40 points, and some other guys are going to get there. And both Mooney and Kmet are really cheap. Mooney has a pretty nice matchup on the outside. He had 5 targets last week. Cole Kmet, he played 100% of the snaps last week and ran routes on 77% of dropbacks, which was a season high. I think people are a little afraid of the Jimmy Graham involvement, but his role is pretty solid. And I think with everyone gravitating to Parham, Cole Kmet isn't a bad toss in as well. And then on the Jags side, I mean, it's the same story. Obviously, we don't have James Robinson this week, so it's going to be some kind of gross committee between Azigbo and Dare Ngubawale. I'm staying away from that. I do have a little interest in the receivers. I think DJ Chark at 4,800 and specifically Laviska Shenault, 3,700, had 6 targets last week. Yep. I do think Shenault is the preferred bring back if you are stacking it up and hoping this game goes over the total.
Does Glennon give them more of a passing offense? Are you feeling good about this because of Glennon or just because of the value and the actual prices, Peter?
Yeah, more the value. I think Chark has actually been better with Minshew this year with his splits. But Laviska's role keeps growing each week. They manufacture a few touches for him. And at 3,700, I do think it's hard for the Bears to, win you a tournament without the Jags, putting up some kind of fight. So without Robinson to play as the bring back, I do think Shenault from both a role and price and ownership perspective makes a lot of sense.
Joe, you're in on Trubisky, but from what I've been seeing watching the Bears, they have like 9 plays now, and they just run the same 9 plays. They've basically switched to like a Gary Kubiak offense or a Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan, whatever you want to call it, but sort of that play action, things that make Baker Mayfield good offense. And at some point, it's got to catch up to them that they don't have a full playbook, right? Like the Jaguars, say what you will about the overall state of the franchise. Like they can play a little bit of defense every now and again. Are you at all concerned about that?
Yeah, I think that's a concern. I think that one thing that's been nice about Trubisky is he still uses his legs a little bit, but also like over a 70% completion rate in 3 straight games. Like his yards per attempt is decent. He's actually pushing the ball downfield a little more. Peter mentioned Mooney, who I think is pretty sharp in this spot. So I think that he's still fine. I think his price is at a point where I'm willing to take that chance. He's only 5,700 in a great spot against Jacksonville. Pete, a question I got a ton this morning on my stream was, can you play Trubisky and Montgomery together? It sounds like you are pretty significantly just if like you're playing Trubisky, you're playing that Montgomery probably fails at chalk, right?
Yeah, that's how I'd prefer to think about it. That said, like the leverage isn't as clean with Trubisky's ownership where it is. So again, this is all comes back to, field size stuff. If you're building a Millie Maker lineup, and you're playing Trubisky stack, I think you obviously fade it. But if you just like this game a lot and you're playing one of these 1,000, person small field tournaments, I think it's fine to do a Trubisky and Montgomery in the same way I think it would be fine to do a Herbert and Eckler. I mean, the thing, as much as I have this bias and not liking David Montgomery, they refuse to give anyone else touches.
No, yeah, it's all him. It's all him. They've turned entirely into a play action offense with David Montgomery being their only option at running back. Now, I don't know how long this can last. This might be the week that the pumpkin, or turns back into a pumpkin, but like it's been working. The fact is we're talking about playing Mitch Trubisky week 16. And the fact that this is kind of like a sneaky high total at 46.5. Who would have thought a couple weeks ago that Bears Jags would be a 46.5 point total with an 8.5 point spread for the Bears? Peter, you already mentioned you think that if you're going to play some of these Bears guys, you're hoping for a shootout. You're hoping that the Jags are able to keep up. Are you taking the over, and how do you feel about 8.5 for Chicago?
Yeah, I'm probably staying away from the spread, but yeah, I'm taking the over here. I think Jacksonville, they can stay competitive in these kind of games, and the Bears don't strike me as a team that can just close them out really easily. So yeah, I'm playing the over here.
Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the over for me as well. But I guess what's interesting is the under is getting 92% of the money right now and only 48% of the bets. So that's a little bit scary this late in the week to see that much of at least the betting dollars on the under in this one.
Mike Glennon revenge game. You just can't turn stuff like that down. Bengals and Texans. Oh boy, I wish I could turn this one down. No Boyd, so I guess we'll find out all about that when we head to space. But it feels like T. Higgins might be a good play here. Brandon Allen is back at quarterback for the Bengals, who haven't had more than 310 yards total, or I'm sorry, believe it's 210 yards total passing in several weeks. They had like 90 something last week and still won. It's bad. Bengals 7.5 point dogs on the road at Houston, 44.5 point total. Who wants Deshaun Watson in their lineup this week? Do you want him, Joe Holka?
I like Watson a bit. I liked him a little bit more when I thought he was going to come in at sub 10%. It looks like he's kind of a middling, like 15% or so. I'm not sure what he'll end up at, like kind of the higher stakes stuff, but I think Watson's okay. This game, I don't know exactly what to do with this game because like the Cincinnati offense with Brandon Allen, like I want to like T. Higgins at 4,700, but he's looking like he's pretty chalky. Obviously Boyd out with that concussion, so should be a decent target floor at least for Higgins. Brandon Cooks is 6,200. Again, I wish he was a little bit cheaper. So I think that the prices on this game have me off of it currently. Like David Johnson, we see him finally kind of go off through the air last week, but now he's 6,100. So Gio Bernard, 4,800. If you buy into that workload, he seems like at least a price point that stands out. But Pete, I'm struggling with the prices in this game. Are you kind of in the same spot?
You know what? Actually just struggling more with the ownership than I am the prices. And like you said earlier in the week, I thought this was going to be maybe a sneaky spot. And now I'm looking at all the updated ownership. Watson's popular, David Johnson's popular, Cooks, Higgins, Bernard, Kiki, like all of them are varying degrees of being popular. So yeah, I still think you can use Watson. I think maybe in like smaller field stuff, Cooks might even come a little lower as he gets squeezed. And then you could toss in Chad Hansen, who I think is probably a pretty good play here as well. I don't love T. Higgins as the chalky bring back on an offense that continues to implode here. I hate how gross this is. Leone touted it earlier. He's popping in some optimals. I prefer, I think, when you factor in ownership, to go to AJ Green at 3,400 if I'm trying to get off of the chalk bring back. So I think that's where I'm at. I'm probably staying away from this game unless I find a way to get really creative.
I love the Texans. I got them at 8-point favorites in this game. I love them even more at 7.5. That half point just we'll do it again. Tantalizing. 44.5. I think I'm going to stay away from the total, but I just don't think that the Bengals can keep up. And I don't think that they can stop Watson. I'm not the biggest Watson guy. I've talked about it a lot of times on this channel. Like I think that he needs some scrutiny amid the entire morass of nonsense that's happening down in Houston. But who's with me? Who wants to ride this Texans train with your boy Dieter? Joe Holka, do you want to hop on?
Yeah, our producer Jordan in the chat just put 86% of the cash is on the Texans right now. So that's pretty enticing for sure. I'm with Peter that like I liked this game from a DFS perspective more earlier in the week, but I still think that the Texans overall are a pretty safe bet this week.
Peter?
Yeah, if I'm not playing this game, I do want to maybe find ways to bet on the Texans here. I think what Deshaun Watson has done, if I put my football guy hat on for a second, he's lost like 4 offensive weapons throughout the course of the year and just balls out every week. That said, they have a little bit of that Chargers vibe, right? Where they just let teams hang around. They never close people out. So you know what? Maybe I'm lying. Like, give me Bengals with the points.
Big Chargers energy. I'm going to get you a football guy hat. I wish Christmas was closer. I guess I'll just pretend like I had it all along and that this all worked out. There it is. That's the football guy hat?
Yeah, this is how our Pilgrims played DFS back in the day.
If you give me 30 seconds, I'm going to tee you up on Panthers and Washington. Washington's a 1.5 favorite. They don't know who the hell their quarterback is, but they're a 1.5 favorite. 41.5 point total. Well, God, this is like indicative of the entire slate.
Did we do Jets? Are we going in 1 p.m. order?
Thought we were. This game's
at 1 p.m., Pete. I know your spreadsheet's messed up right now, but this game's at 1 p.m.
Come on, Carolina, Washington's at 4.
Yeah, Carolina and Washington's at 4 based on my calendar here.
We'll forget about it and we'll flip over.
Is that true?
We'll flip over. We should probably find that out. That feels like very pertinent information.
I'm staring at a lineup builder that will not be mentioned because no free ads. But it has it at 1 p.m. So maybe that's wrong.
Here's the thing:
it's at Eastern time, also known as 2:05 Mountain.
This changes everything.
Okay. So one game has been flipped to later. All right. So we're just going to not worry about that right now. And we will talk about it literally in a matter of moments. We're going to talk about Browns and Jets, which is plenty to chew on. The Jets are now 6.5 point dogs at home. Nobody is playing for the Browns. This is Marvin Hall time. That's what we're learning here. Marvin Hall time, 3,000. Joe Holka, talk me through what the hell we do with this Browns lineup. And I'd like to let you all know that I've been sitting on the under from this game since it was 47.5. I'm feeling real good. I'm going to go get my football guy hat.
Yeah, it's a tough week when the Carolina and Washington game is getting flexed to 4 p.m. So I guess that's how gross the slate is, Pete. Marvin Hall, yeah, he's 3K. There's no other wide receivers really for Cleveland right now. So I'm not really sure if that just means they're going to run the ball 25 times with Nick Chubb and probably another 15 times with Kareem Hunt. That's probably what they'll try and do. The Jets are better against the run than they are against the pass. So there's that. I don't know. Marvin Hall at 3K. Against the Jets, I guess it makes some sense. Like, it's not like a high total by any means. This game, I think, probably could just get a little bit gross overall. Like, Pete, are you on the Marvin Hall thing? Like, this seems really thin to me.
So this is how I view these, because Marvin Hall is a boom bust player. He's a high 8 dot deep down the field. So he's either going to get there or he's not. And how do we treat those players? When they're popular, we fade them because it's not baked in there. And he's not going to have like a 6 or 7 target floor like maybe some of these other guys. So right now, ownership, I don't think has been fully updated since this news is coming in. So yeah, I know this is always the out here, but if he's over 10% or you think he will be in your contest, I think you fade him. If you are looking for punts though, and you think he's going to be under that, I think it's fine. He's similar to maybe like the KJ Hamler play a few weeks ago against Carolina, but KJ Hamler wasn't popular when we did that. So I guess it all depends on where Marvin Hall's ownership settles.
Now that I have this ridiculous football guy hat on, I want to tell you all.
What is happening?
Yeah, well, you're feeling very left out is what you're feeling.
Joe.
Where's my hat? Who put my hat in the mail that like literally just didn't get here by Christmas time? Kidding me?
No, we're just fancy men with weird hats, and we love Arby's, but we do free sponsorships for Arby's. I'm taking the Jets, and I might take the money line on this game. I might just take the Jets outright because I'm a football guy.
Wow.
That's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like the Jets are due, and it's all been building up for this, and the next 2 weeks are going to be part of the sweet release. Now that's a hockey guy.
This isn't good. I can't hear you guys now.
Yeah, I've been holding up my this current hat situation isn't going to work long term.
It's the weirdest thing I got in my closet.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
My goal, it took me 16 weeks to turn this show into a full prop show, and I finally did it.
I've been just stockpiling props for week 17 when I take on the full overzet roll. By the way, you have no idea how hard it is to get a hat this big in this. Like, this is a nice hat. I had to get this bad boy. This is hard as hell. You know how big my noggin is? 7 7/8.
I can't drink it through this. There we go.
You can't fight and you can't drink with that visor on. All right. Did we come to a consensus on what the hell we're doing with this game? Are we feeling good about it?
Well, let's just also talk about, so we have their entire wide receiver core out. So we do have Marvin Hall. They have 2 other practice squad players. I was going to have to go to space to relay some of this news, but we'll give you a little spoiler here. I do think that obviously this means a bump for the tight ends. You know, you have David Njoku, you have Harrison Bryant. I think all of those guys will see an uptick in targets. And then, I know the chat is excited about Kareem Hunt as well. I saw Adam over at ETR boosted his ownership up to 15%, which based on the excitement for playing him that I'm seeing, I think that sounds about right. But at 5,900, I do think the price is right there. So this is a tricky situation. I do think there's opportunity here, but it's hard to know exactly where it's going and how functional this offense is going to be. And I will say, Joe, if Chubb's ownership on the flip side is coming down, I think he enters the conversation a little bit too.
We have the salary to do it, man. That's the thing. Like, I was trying to figure out, like, I mean, it's easier to fit in Kareem Hunt at 5,900, but like now, like that, there's so much value on the slate. It's really not hard to play Nick Chubb. So like, he's not someone that like is going to give us the pass catching floor of like what we would like come to, I guess, like at that salary range, but just there's not a lot up there. And if they don't have anything at wide receiver, like this could be like a 20 touch on the ground spot for Nick Chubb. And if he's like, 15% or lower, like that's a pretty decent spot overall.
Who wants to take the Jets money line with me? No. Okay, that's a no. Okay. That's fine.
You can lose your Sawbucks by yourself, brother.
By the way, big ups to J-Degs in the chat. Indiana overs in the bankroll of doom. That's what we got going on down there. That is elite content there, J-Degs. Well done, sir. This hat is coming off. I have to put my headphones on back right. You're not allowed to take off the helmet, though, Joe. You got to keep that. I need to keep that around. And by the way, I do look like a member of Arcade Fire with this hat. That's the reason I have it, because I'm a dork ball.
Win Butler, also, I believe 6'8". So you guys,
sneaky hooper. I think he's only about 6'5".
Okay, my bad. He is a good hooper.
He is a good hooper. I think he's a multiple-time NBA All-Star Game, Celebrity Game MVP.
Let's see how big of a hipster Joe is. Do you know who Win Butler is, Joe?
Win Butler.
Not a clue.
Zero chance.
Not a clue. Not a clue. It's a very popular band. Do you know Arcade Fire, right?
I mean, no one has ever called me a hipster in my life, so no, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, Wow. Doesn't know Arcade Fire overs it. Doesn't know who they are.
We got to get Joe cultured. I mean, all this guy does is, I stream all the time now too, and I know the hip indie rock. Let's go, Joe.
What is the new hip indie rock, Peter Overzet?
The hip indie rock these
This
days,
is where this slate is right now.
I'm going to save it in space. When I go to space, I'll tell you my favorite indie rock band along with all of the hottest inactive news. We need one more game for me to compile, and then I'll be ready for space.
Do you guys want to do that Carolina Washington game? The one that has been flexed back and forth, back and snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap. Panthers 1.5 dogs at Washington, who doesn't have a quarterback, unless they want to go a strip club guy. 41.5 point total. Do you want to talk about that one, Joe Holka? What do you see from behind the visor there in this contest?
Yeah, so what I was kind of, in on earlier today, Antonio Gibson at 6,600. If people are worried about him coming off this toe injury, his ownership is looking extremely low for a guy that, the game script should be there for them at this point. This Washington defense has been elite this year. It's a game they have to win. Obviously, no Terry McLaurin, so there's an argument, just give the ball to your best players. So I like Antonio Gibson a lot, even at 6,600. I like Logan Thomas quite a bit. I don't really have a Carolina guy that I'm super interested in this spot. If you wanted to go all the way down to Steven Sims at 3K, I think that's probably fine. But I think it's far and away Antonio Gibson at lower ownership in tournaments, I think makes some sense. Do you like the Gibson play, Pete, or is that me getting too cute?
No, I like it. He's popping in Pete's proprietary injury return model. There was a Mike Garofalo quote. I think he said he was going to get a sizable workload today.
Sizable load.
Oh, yeah. We love our sizable loads here at the Line Movement channel. I don't know what that means, but I think, too, with Terry McLaurin out, there are going to be more touches for these running backs. And so I think with Antonio Gibson back, I think that bodes pretty well for him. The thing I'm struggling with is almost all of my favorite plays are in this later slate of games. I like Gibson. I like Miles Sanders. I don't even mind the Eckler chalk. So I think leaving room for some of these guys, it makes a lot of sense. And I think Gibson, I know some people have started to tout him. He's getting a little ownership steam, but I think he'll still be under 10%. So yeah, I like Gibson.
Kings of Mike Leone. That's pretty good. That's pretty good there, Jordan. That's good work. Should we head to space?
Yes, I am. I am still making sure that I have all of.
I can just keep talking about sizable loads.
No, let's talk about the Panthers real quick here. And
fine.
Because I do think no one's playing the Panthers. Space. Joe, every week, Mike Davis's snap share, it literally ping pongs every week. He goes from a 75, 80% bell cow share down to 50%. If you look at that trend, this is a bell cow week for him. No one's going to play him. Robbie Anderson is super cheap. Curtis Samuel,
he was garbage last week.
Do you have any interest in any of these Panthers?
Not really, if I'm being honest. I think that the Davis play in theory makes some sense, but we haven't even seen him go over 65 yards in 5 straight games. So I think you're a little bit touchdown heavy there for the price. I think that he's, like you said, it's the usage in the receiving game is the one that's kind of ping pong back and forth. So it almost feels gosh, what's a good comparison? Not Jonathan, almost like a Swift or a Taylor, to where there's so much volatility into their actual usage, to where when they get there, they're always super low, but their price is never going to move to a point where they're going to be super chalky. So I think it's probably fine in large field stuff, but not one that I'm super focused on in smaller field stuff.
Take us to space, buddy. Actually,
Producer Jordan, is my spaceship rocket ready to go?
Yeah, we just need to watch the hats, make sure everything is safe. We want to keep everything inside the vehicle at all times.
Hold on to your hats, everybody, because it is the most important moment in daily fantasy. Week in and week out, we go not just to the ends of the earth, but to the ends of the galaxy to bring you the inactives. These are the week 16 inactives. Sorry, I'm trying to watch this guy trying to put on a vest. The week 16 inactives from the one and only Peter Overzet. Let's head to space.
And boy, can I tell you guys, it is a gross slate, even from up here in space. We have lots of news coming in. You guys already know about the Browns situations. They have no wide receivers. No one. They're playing Marvin Hall. Who's Marvin Hall? I'll tell you who Marvin Hall is. He's a guy that Michael Leone made us play in a tilt space lineup a few weeks back. I don't know how that happened, but it did. So they are going to start Marvin Hall, 2 practice squad wide receivers. One of them's named is Jamarcus, but don't worry about it. There's also going to be some tight ends. Harrison Bryant, David Njoku. What else do we have going on here? Let's do the most recent stuff. Cincinnati is listing Alex Erickson as the starter over Tyler Boyd. If you play Alex Erickson in the lineup today and you win, send me a Venmo request. I'll give you $5 for that play. Cleveland lists Jamarcus Bradley as the starting lineup. That's the other practice squad wide receiver. Anthony McFarland is inactive today. I don't even know what you would do with that information, but I wanted to tell you. Here's one that's actually kind of interesting. Cordero Patterson is active for the Bears this week after not practicing at all this week. That could mean a little bit less touches for Chalk, David Montgomery. Washington, breaking news. They will start Dwayne Haskins at
strip
QB
club
today.
guy.
Although that is coming from Ian Rappaport, and we don't trust anything he says, so maybe it's not true. What else do we have going on? Oh, it is Nick Chubb's birthday. Do you guys know what that means? It means he's going to rush for 600 yards today. What else do we have going on? We have evergreen stuff. We're going to get no Keenan Allen, no Terry McLaurin, no James Robinson, no Jarvis Landry, Rashad Higgins, Donovan People-Jones, Julio Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tyler Boyd, Duke Johnson, Golden Tate, Phillip Lindsay, Hunter Henry, Joey Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, Cam Akers. Send me back to space.
We are so off the rails that we have left the atmosphere. Peter is now tumbling back in with all of his props. Strip club guy is starting. Yes, he is. Hot damn. And I wish we could only talk about that from here on out because the rest of the slate is so damn gross. What the hell, man? Joe, do you want to talk about Broncos and Chargers with me as Peter Overzet, reacclimates himself to the atmosphere?
I do, because this is probably one of the better games that we have left for sure in terms of pricing. Pete, I'm like so distracted right now on what just happened. I got to get my bearings a little bit here too.
That was your best inactive corner yet, buddy.
Yeah, that was impressive stuff. Melvin Gordon, 5,600. There's going to be a lot of people on him in this spot. We talked about just like the Montgomery role, like he's not very good, but he's basically a 3 down plus goal line back. You can say that about Melvin Gordon in this spot. So I think he's still a pretty solid play. I prefer Melvin Gordon to Le'Veon Bell. I think that the Denver guys are just way too cheap overall. Like Tim Patrick at 4,200, he's my preferred guy outside of Melvin Gordon. I think he offers a ton of leverage. We look at this this Chargers team. They can be beat deep, and Tim Patrick's been the one that has been kind of leading the way in that regard. Most recently is a team high 10 deep ball receptions this year. 28% of his targets overall have been of the deep ball variety. So I think that one thing that's kind of interesting as well is 58% of his snaps he's aligned on the right side. Obviously, all this stuff comes from our friends over at Sports Info Solutions, and that's exactly where Casey Hayward plays. And I'm not scared of that matchup at all. He's allowed a league worst 19 deep targets this year, 10 receptions, and 368 yards in terms of deep stuff allowed. So Tim Patrick at like 2% seems like a guy that maybe a late swap type of player that you'd be looking at. But if you're stacking up this game, I think he's the Denver guy that I think could go a little bit overlooked. Are you on that one, Pete?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Judy's fine too, but I prefer Tim Patrick as well. He just seemed to have had a better rapport with Drew Lock and has had a pretty consistent role. I love this game as well with the late optionality here. I think there's lots of things you can do. Like if you're buried early, you don't have to play Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. You can do a Herbert to Mike Williams and, bring it back with a Tim Patrick. If you're looking good, you can eat some of this chalk because I do think both Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler are decent chalk. And so I like having the flexibility of knowing how your early lineups go. I think the biggest riddle for me right now, and I was just talking to Leone about it, Joe, is what Donald Parham's ownership is going to be, because it's all over the map right now. I mean, Osmo has it at 7%, ETR has it at 28%. I do think in smaller field, high stakes, he will be very popular, but I'm curious, where do you think, say in the SPY or the red zone, the mid-stakes single entries, where do you think he comes in at?
So I think what matters here is that a lot of the Parham ownership could be on teams that are trying to fit in Chiefs, I think, because those prices are so hard to get to overall. So like mini stacks with Calvin Ridley and Tyreek Hill, I think a lot of those teams will have Parham at tight end, but like full stacks of this game, like the pieces are so cheap that like you have so much salary left over. Like I still think that the Parham play is reasonable at 2,500 if he ends up at like 15% and you can just get rid of tight end at that point. I like it. It allows you to play some of these kind of mid-range wide receivers instead of paying all the way down for guys like Marvin Hall. It allows you to play guys like Nick Chubb instead of going all the way down to some of these other running backs. I kind of like the Parham play. I think that there's a chance at the high stakes he's much higher owned than he is kind of in these lottery ticket tournaments where he's just not, like, people don't know who this guy is, right? So I think in our stuff, Pete, like he could probably be like 30 plus. But in the lower stakes stuff, probably I wouldn't be shocked if he's like 15.
There's a 40. Oh, go ahead, Pete. Sorry, my bad.
I'm going to toss out two more names that, we have seen these guys have big opportunities when Keenan Allen is out. Now we have both Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry. I mean, Tyron Johnson has been the guy that's kind of filled in the slot. He had 5 targets last week, and that was even with Keenan Allen playing a little bit. So I think he's viable. And then Jalen Guyton's the other kind of deep threat as well. He had 6 targets last week too. So as much as it seems obvious that the opportunity is opening up for, say, Mike Williams and Donald Parham, I could easily see Jalen Guyton or Tyron Johnson having big games as well.
It's kind of a big total, 47.5. Now, obviously 47.5 isn't crazy like it used to be. And it's not even the largest total. Hell, it's tied for the lowest total on the afternoon slate, so long as we're forgetting that Carolina and Washington is on that slate, because it isn't. I refuse to acknowledge it. How do we feel about Drew Lock? Is he a sneaky play at all? If you wanted to stack in some really expensive receivers, going maybe with a Lock instead of somebody else, because again, the Broncos are getting 2.5. There's kind of a big total on this one. As you mentioned, Joe, you can beat the Chargers over the top. Is Lock a play for you?
I think what did it for me with Lock is that Bosa is out in this game. So if there wasn't going to be as much pressure coming his way, like Drew Lock is someone that is just horrific under pressure. So it made me like this game a lot more. Just like the fact that Bosa is out. Like Drew Lock's 5K. He's willing to push the ball down the field. Doesn't give us a ton in terms of rushing equity. But I think Drew Lock is a little bit sneaky at that price. I think that I would probably get there on a slate where pricing wasn't this loose. Like you don't have to play Drew Lock. So that's kind of where I'm at on that one. I think, Pete, like my biggest issue with this game, I love this game. I'm not exactly sure with Keenan Allen out, like you mentioned Guyton, you mentioned Johnson, Mike Williams, like all of these guys seem kind of similar to me. So does that just mean that we're going to be underweight on Mike Williams? Like that seems kind of scary. But like those 3 guys, and then you throw in Parham, like maybe it's more spread out than we think.
I do think we need to be careful about Mike Williams' ownership if it continues to rise here, because he is, again, one of those bigger play down the field guys who's going to have more volatility to how he performs. That said, I think his red zone expectation is going to be pretty good without Hunter Henry or Keenan Allen. So maybe there's some more outs for him to get there even without the big plays. But I do think it's something to keep an eye on. And again, this is one of those games where I want to play a big game stack in a smaller field contest. Like I want to get into a 500 person contest where I can play 5 or 6 guys from this game because it's so cheap and there's a ton of value going there. So just be careful not to load up too much on it in larger field stuff. But I think it's very viable to play 5, 6 guys from this game in super small field.
Is there a guy you think directly in? So if Mike Williams were to fail, is there who is the biggest negative correlation on Mike Williams? Do you think it is Parham, like with that touchdown roll, or is it one of these guys like Tyron or Jalen Guyton? Like Guyton's the one that, at least in a small sample, looks like the biggest negative correlation there. But I'm still not exactly sure how to best leverage Mike Williams. Is it against either of these other guys because they're going to be super low?
I think it is Guyton. I mean, he has been the other guy running the deep down the field routes, and he had 6 targets last week. I even was checking out, Mike Clay's wide receiver cornerback matchup. He loved the matchup for Guyton as well on the outside. So I do think if Mike Williams fails and this offense still goes off, I think Guyton is most likely to be the biggest beneficiary.
How do we feel about Tim Patrick, 46 receiving yards as a prop? Over gets you minus 120 payout. Holka, you like Tim Patrick over 46?
Yeah, I'm hammering that one. I think Tim Patrick is still one of like the best under the radar plays in this game. Like I haven't built a ton of teams like fully stacked, like right. Pete's kind of insinuating here. But if a lot of people are just going to bring it back with Melvin Gordon on the other side, I love the idea of Tim Patrick in the spot.
I love it too. Derek Carty, who does the blitz projections over at Rotogrinders, he's super high on Tim Patrick this week, and he hasn't projected for 56 receiving yards. So at 46, that's an absolute hammer smash there.
I know we just talked about how many points there could be in this game and how many fun opportunities there are. This game is abound with them, if you will. I don't know. Broncos or Chargers defense has to entice somebody. Maybe not you guys, but somebody out there. You guys want to talk about either the defenses in this game? Because I don't know, pretty mercurial offenses, to say the least. It might be a bad day for one of them. Not that that'd be good days for you, but, bad day for one of them. What do you think about it, Peter?
Brandon Thorne had this is a mismatch for the Chargers defensive line on the Broncos offensive line. So if this game ends up being fairly popular, I think that might be a good way to attack it if you need to, where you could maybe play Chargers D with Eckler and maybe you kind of get off of the passing game stuff. But yeah, I think there are definitely paths to the Chargers manhandling the Broncos here.
I just love the fact that we're talking about a 6'8" tight end who's probably not going to do anything other than stand in the end zone and catch touchdowns. It's my favorite thing in all of football. And, we're going to start and end the season with basically the same thing. Donald Parham, 2-touchdown game. Eagles, Cowboys. Cowboys are 3.5-point dogs at home, 49.5-point total. Joe, you're our running quarterback expert.
Yeah, just keep playing Jalen Hurts, man. That's the play, right? I still think he's too cheap at $7K if we're looking at this spot. I think one way to get a little bit unique is most people are just kind of running Jalen Hurts out naked because it's been a little bit spread out. I think that if you want to get different, you don't want to punt all the way down at tight end. I think that Dallas Goedert's still a great play at 3,600. If you wanted to just pair him with one of his wide receiver options, I still like Jalen Reagor in this spot quite a bit. This is a game that I had a ton of early on in the week. It's still one of those ones that I wish was at 1 p.m. Because it looks like there's going to be some ownership here now. Pete, what are you doing with the Dallas side? Like I wanted to be on Michael Gallup, but he seems like the most popular play on the other side of this one. Or am I wrong? Is there just not much ownership here overall because it's so spread out?
Yeah, I think it's going to be so spread out. I do think Gallup, almost similar to last week, he was trending to being the popular punt play, and then this other stuff opens up. And so now, because we have, the Chargers wide receivers, we got Cam Sims, we got Marvin Hall, I do think he's not going to be over 10%. I also think CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are viable too. I like this game. I think outside of Jalen Hurts, no one is going to be super chalky. And for me, Jalen Hurts is good chalk. I think he has arguably the biggest ceiling of any quarterback on this slate other than Patrick Mahomes probably. And yeah, I think you want to leave room in your lineup to play pieces of this game. I love playing, Miles Sanders with a Cowboys running back. I love playing Hurts to Goddard or Reagor, as Joe mentioned, and then picking your poison here with the wide receivers. Zeke is going to play. The rumor is it's going to be an even split, which is kind of how it was before last week when they were both playing too. So I think you probably stay away from the running backs, but man, Lamb or Gallup at their price points here, I think is pretty nice.
We taking the Eagles in the 3.5? We betting on the Eagles here? We just going to ride the Hurts train straight to hell?
Yeah, Jordan just dropped in the chat. 81% of the cash is on Philly right now at -3. So that seems like a pretty decent spot. I think it's
already
sometimes
moved the line from this morning.
Yeah, it takes Vegas a little bit of time as well to adapt to these quarterbacks, right? Like we talked about it last week on, like the rushing ability is there for Hurts, but also he backs into one of these 300-yard, 3 touchdown games through the air, and it's just such a large ceiling overall. So like it's nice to see him come in and kind of jumpstart this offense a little bit. So I just want to be long on Hurts overall.
No, I'm with you, man. Like he was slanging it. He was slanging it against Arizona. So I can't blame anybody for buying in, even though, again, might turn into a pumpkin at some point. No problem with staying long, especially when you're a quarterback truther when it comes to running quarterbacks. How do you feel about the total? I hate the fact that they're not going to be playing Pollard more than half of the snaps. He's so much better than Zeke in my estimation, Peter. And you're giving me 49.5. I'm pounding the under on this one. Do you see it a different way, or are you with me?
No, I think we could see a lot of points here. I think both of these defenses are pretty bad. I think the way Hurts plays, he can really speed up the game with quick plays, lots of explosive players in this game. So yeah, I think I'm on the over here.
All right. Rams, Seahawks. Is Russ going to cook? 1.5 point favorite at home, 47.5 point total. Peter, how are we feeling?
Quick, how many likes do we have on this video right now, guys?
Oh, that's a great question. Producer Jordan, could you let us know how many likes we have on this here video?
107.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Not a big math guy, but that seems a little light.
I went to goddamn space. We have 496 people watching now and 108 likes. What is wrong with you people? Hey, Joe,
I busted out a giant goddamn hat.
I've got a helmet on.
He's been wearing a helmet for half an hour.
Joe is stretching out his headphones beyond repair.
Joe,
these are nice headphones.
It would be worth it if we get over 100 likes. Well, I don't know. I don't really know what to do at this point. Should I take the helmet off? Like, does it feel more comfortable?
I think the
Hang on,
helmet's
Joe. I need to ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Does YouTube charge you to like a video? I'm just trying to figure something out.
As far as I know, this entire show is free, Pete.
Okay. Oh, so I just assumed people were being stingy because it would cost money to like a video or something in this economy.
That could be.
I don't believe that's the case, though. And pretty sure I look like Win Butler, so that should deserve a like.
Is Win Butler an Arcade Fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's him? Okay, cool.
Oh, I forgot to say an indie band I like these days. The band Cheerleader. Look them up. Good indie rock.
I'll look that up. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Writing that down.
Also, this is the deal. Thank you. Okay, we are now soaring in likes.
Closing you also in on need 200. Wow.
You need to subscribe, and you need to turn on the notification bell for the Tilt Space later tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Joe Holka, Michael Leone, and I, we have all resolved that we're done with this losing thing. We're done with tilting. This week, the show is just called The Winning Space. That's what we're doing. It's a win space. That's what we are doing this week at 6:30. So turn on that notification. You will be notified when we go live, and we will be raking it in, Joe. Dollar bills, y'all.
I'm ready, man.
Right.
211.
Sorry. Okay, I feel satiated.
That's better. It's Win Butler. W-I-N. Win. Could be W-Y-N-N if you wanted to get real weird with that. That's like the Southern pronunciation. You guys want to talk about Rams and Seahawks?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd love to.
Peter Overzet, how you feeling about this game? You going to play anybody in this game?
Yeah, I'm warming up to it. Here, I think the only guy that's going to catch any ownership is Darrell Henderson. Without Cam Akers this week, he's 4,500. He will have the early down role to himself. We know Malcolm Brown isn't going away. If Seattle gets a lead, Malcolm Brown will be playing a ton of snaps. But if you can project some game scripts where the Rams are holding the lead, we know McVay is more than willing to give Darrell Henderson 20 carries in this spot.
Oh, yeah.
So one kind of correlation I like playing that makes sense, that tells a game script story, is you play Darrell Henderson and you bring it back with a Seahawks wide receiver. I, of course, prefer grown-ass man DK Metcalf. I'm not scared of Jalen Ramsey. If you're scared of Jalen Ramsey, bring it back with Tyler Lockett. But I do think that makes sense because we need Seattle to throw for those wide receivers to get there. Why would they be throwing? Because the Rams running game is working well. So I think that correlation makes sense. But Joe, none of these plays are going to be popular. I think you can make cases for Carson and the Rams wide receivers as well. Do you have any favorite plays here?
That's what I was just going to say. I think this is like the prime late swap game if you get into trouble because there's going to be so much ownership in the afternoon. But then you look at like guys like Cooper Kupp and like Robert Woods coming in at like sub 10%. So DK Metcalf, like you said, like if DK Metcalf ends up like 5% in this spot because he just has struggled against Jalen Ramsey, he's 7,800 now. His price is going down to the point where it's not like he's 8,500 anymore. So I like that a lot. Darrell Henderson at 4,500 seems fine. I just don't know. Again, on this slate, I don't know if it's necessary. I think there's enough value spots to where I would just prefer to pay up for a little bit more safety at running back, because it's pretty easy to do. Not really on either of the quarterbacks in this game. I think it's just late swap only for me mostly.
I just checked over on the chat and we're talking about
it's getting weird.
Moms. Yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of set the precedent.
Escalated quickly.
I'm shocked it took until week 16 for things to get like this inherently off the rails. Just everyone using props, talking about moms, sizable loads.
So yeah, I've got a glare right now because like my light just beats in on my side. I missed part of that chat, but yes, it escalated very quickly.
I just would like to say just a real quick sup to all the Line Movement chat guys, moms out there. Okay, I just want to say sup to all your moms.
Okay,
I thought you were going to start singing a song there or something. This one goes out to all the moms and the Line Movement.
This one goes out to all the Line Movement chat moms out there. A little ditty I wrote last night. You came for the DFS, and then I stole your mom.
Yeah, you could have gone a different direction there. Came for the DFS, left with some other thing that has a D in the acronym. Do you guys want to tell me who your favorite play is this week? Do we want to create some chalk, or do we want to just leave it at this pile of nonsense that we've created here this morning / afternoon? I have no idea what time it is. Holka, why don't you tell me who you really, really, really like besides moms?
Who I really, really, really like. I'm just going to keep playing Jalen Hurts until he lets me down. I guess that's probably the easy way out. He's probably one of the chalkier quarterback options, but I do like him quite a bit. I think that if there is one guy that I definitely want to be heavy on, that's going to be a little bit lower owned. I like Tim Patrick quite a bit, especially with how high owned Melvin Gordon is going to be in that game.
Overset, what's your mom movement play of the week?
I have two favorite plays. I like Lamar Jackson a lot this week. And my hammer play, late swap option, it's your mom.
How did I not see that coming?
You look surprised that I was just literally bracing myself for it. So I was ready. You were not, Dieter. I could tell. You knew he was coming with something, but that was not what you thought.
How did I not see that coming? It's also what your mom said. It's Texans minus 7.5. Guys, if for some reason this has lent us any credibility in the betting space, we would like to parlay that directly into you using blitzbet.eu if you're north of the border. That would just be absolutely fantastic. We're a big fan of the site. Joe Holka was once wearing a hat that had the logo on it. Now he is wearing a helmet because we are professionals at this sort of thing that we do here. And so just use blitzbet.eu. It is really outstanding. What time does Winning Space go on tonight, Peter Overzet, for all those fine folks out there and the moms?
6:30 p.m. in the only legitimate time zone, Derek Dieter.
Thank you. And go screw yourself. Holka, thank you for bearing with us on this absolute ridiculous train wreck of a show that left the atmosphere. You're a valued friend and a very good boss, and please don't fire us.
We're good, man. As long as I can get, or at least I can invoice out some new headphones. But I think it was worth it. I think they might be good.
We need you to sign up for blitzbet.eu.
I really don't know what we're doing here, boys, but we're here.
All right, that's it. Bye.